I'm interested in influencers in general. I mean, I like to joke that the politicians of tomorrow are YouTubers today. The political organizers of tomorrow are Twitch streamers today. That there's a certain kind of political power, cultural power that I think we can ascribe to influencers. And I think it's interesting not just to understand influencers as an individual or on a subject level, but to look at the methodology that influencers apply. Because there are some influencers who are legitimately talented and are very much earned at the attention they get. But there are other influencers who their rise to power is algorithmic, right? They have found success not because they're talented in their content, but they're talented in their ability to work the algorithm and play the algorithm. And we all know these people, right? We've all seen these people rise to platforms, kind of, rise in social media, not because they're particularly interesting or funny, but because they expertly work the algorithm to always be on top, to like be on the trending page. Sometimes it's hate clicks, right? Sometimes, like on YouTube, the thumbs down far outnumber the thumbs up. But in an attention economy, that doesn't really matter, right? In an attention economy, you can still win if you're a jerk, but you're working the algorithm to great success. And that's why I think the research methodology behind influencers is particularly fascinating. And the way in which we quantify and analyze influencers, I think is something worth exploring and worth sharing in a kind of ongoing context. And that's where our friends over at the Tactical Tech Collective, which is another great Twitter account that I love to get content from, they shared this interesting bit of research around how conspiracy theories have found their way into the world of influencer moms. And influencer moms are a particularly fascinating subgenre of the world of influencers because, on a basic level or on a superficial level, it's pretty straightforward, right? It's the life of a mom. It's a lot of kid content, a lot of family content. But in the need to get clicks, right? In the desire to get attention, a lot of these moms branch off into other content, right? They branch off into stuff that they either legitimately believe or equally likely they think is going to bring them an audience, right? They think is going to bring them followers. They think is going to bring them clicks. And in particular, we've seen a lot of people respond to the pandemic by doubling down on conspiracy theory, right? Saying that, the pandemic was a hoax, talking about vaccines as hoax, talking about, governments trying to take things over, 5G conspiracies. I mean, there's a lot of nonsense out there. There's a lot of rubbish that, makes people feel special, makes them feel empowered. I forgot to even mention Q, right? I've so banished Q from my consciousness that, it is obviously another huge part of the pandemic of conspiracy that we've seen over the last, several years. And so what's interesting about this research analysis is they've done a content analysis of a number of popular influencer moms who they haven't identified, but the internet being what it is, if you really wanted to know, you could actually figure out who these people are. But it's interesting the way in which they show how the conspiracy content almost started to take over, right? So here's the research methodology statement. During the first lockdown due to COVID, many American influencer mom profiles started posting more frequently, spreading conspiracy theories. These posts in a short time have dramatically increased the profile's engagement, reaching popularity also thanks to the aesthetics behind which the conspiracy theory messages are hidden. Colors, fonts, illustrations, patterns, and screenshots are here the main protagonists, which is interesting, right? Where previously they might have used kids as the protagonist of their channel. In this case, it was memes, and memes in the form of certain colors, certain social cues that resulted in traffic coming to them. To continue reading, to understand how this phenomenon is spreading, we scraped the last 30 posts of top influencer moms to analyze which visual formats they used to convey conspiracy theories in their Insta profiles. And their main findings was it's very easy to see how conspiracy theory raised posts dominate over other kinds of content. The most part of this content is related to the no-vax conspiracy theory. This is based on the fact that profiles are from mothers who care a lot about issues that affect children, and another widespread conspiracy theory is awakening to urge people to wake up from the dream of a perfect society. Many profiles use a pastel aesthetic under which conspiracy theories are hidden. By using soft colors and serif fonts and simple patterns, they manage to make their message look softer, and it's very difficult to recognize whether a post belongs to the conspiracy theory world or not. And with the same visual language, this aesthetic is used to talk about different types of content, those conspiratorial and others related to lifestyle, fitness, and wellness. And then they get into analyzing each of these different profiles and how the content differentiates. And what I find interesting about this is I think this is an example of the algorithm rewarding conspiracy content. And these are influencers, content creators, who are really just serving the algorithm. Like, they're just hustling to get an audience. They're just trying to create whatever content they can that will get them engagement, that will help them build their audience size. And as a result, the algorithm is kind of nudging them and shifting them towards conspiracy theory. So I find that fascinating in terms of the way in which, not from a design perspective, but from an unconscious design perspective, they're being rewarded for using this type of content, especially in contrast to their base, their core, which was mommy content and family content. That stuff wasn't working for them. But when they mashed up the mommy aesthetic with the conspiracy content, that's when the virus mutated. That's when it became infectious. And that's when they started getting the kind of attention that they desired from the algorithm as a whole. And, I think, this is, on the one hand, fascinating. But on the other hand, you have to step back and ask yourself, is the algorithm embracing the conspiracy, or is the mom embracing the conspiracy, or is it a dance between the two, right? Where is the agency? Is the agency on the algorithm side, or is the agency on the creator side? And I'll admit, I'm conflicted on that. And, the voice simp man points out that he's been of many minds about this as well, and has kind of believed everything at some point. And that is the appeal of conspiracy, that there's always a kernel of truth to it. Right? In the same way that when we were talking about in our first segment, predicting disaster, that when governments on the one hand, when they have one expert predicting disaster and then government policy that does the other, it totally undermines the credibility of governments as a whole. And I think we've seen a crisis in institutional authority and a way in which, there's no one we ought to believe. I mean, I feel let down by every institution in my life. But one of the main reasons that I personally am inoculated against conspiracy is that I believe in incompetence, right? I don't believe that the people who run the world are capable of conspiracy. I believe that they're just struggling to maintain power, and they're not really doing quite a good job of that, right? So I actually believe in kakistocracy, which is ruled by the incompetent. And the only reason that the incompetent are able to maintain their rule is due to entertainment, is due to the opiate of the masses, that we're all distracted, that we're all easily entertained. And that's part of my motivation for doing a kind of cyberpunk news show, is to sort of get us to sort of tune into the matrix that we live in. But as a result, I kind of reject conspiracy, because to believe in conspiracy, you have to actually believe that those people are capable of engaging in conspiracy. And I just think they're incompetent idiots and they couldn't pull it off. And my reference for this argument is South Park, because South Park did a fantastic episode around 9/11 conspiracy theories in which they argued that the 9/11 conspiracy theory was a conspiracy theory by the government to make it look as if it could pull off a conspiracy and therefore appear competent because the government would benefit from being associated with such competence. Alas, I digress, but that tends to be my own approach to, the way in which power works. Herla Claren posts an interesting comment about, the project manager's point of view on conspiracy. Just try organizing even 12 people for a straightforward, non-secret project and see if you still think conspiracy is possible. Right? That's just it. Like, if conspiracy was possible, we'd have a much more interesting political world with multiple political parties and political intrigue and, all sorts of interesting debates. Instead, we got a bunch of idiots who talk about nothing except trying to figure out how they can serve themselves. Alas, I digress. Debunking conspiracy and making fun of conspiracy theories will definitely be a active, persistent thread here at